You came to the wrong world to start over, kid, but since nobody bothered to brief you, I will. Listen close, because out here a bit of context is worth more than clean water. First thing you'll smell is the rats, burnt plastic, sour fuel, printer toner, old coffee. Their vehicles are never quiet. They grind and rattle through the ruins like bad decisions that learn to grow wheels. Picture delivery vans welded to forklift carcasses, HR kiosks stretched into walking gun platforms, office stair rails hammered into roll cages, filing cabinets turned sideways to catch bullets, advertising towers cut down and bolted onto flatbeds to throw shells instead of slogans. They're what's left of the megacity populations. Corporate trash descendants, who never got an evacuation notice, just kept waking up under flickering strip lights while the world fell apart around them. They live inside cities so big, the maps gave up, continents of parking decks, loading bays, and broken data centers. The rats ride those arteries in machines held together by faith, cable ties, and the one technician in each crew who still remembers how to talk to a circuit. On the outside, it's all crooked boxes, dangling wires, and rusted signage. Underneath, there's always one piece of real technology humming away like a heart the cult refuses to let die. Their people match their vehicles, layers of stolen uniforms under office rags, plates cut from server racks, shields made from old safety boards, respirators patched together from cooling ducts. You don't meet a single rat. You encounter a swarm, bodies, backpacks, ammo crates, loudhailers, all moving as one ugly, determined knot. Above them is the high cult, buried somewhere in sealed cores and blacked-out towers. They're so far beyond the everyday rats in knowledge and might as well be a demigod. When he walks onto a platform, the crowd looks at him the way primitives looked at thunder. Their buildings are what happens when bureaucracy refuses to stay dead. Complaint sheds turned into interrogation pits. Ad towers with their screens ripped out and replaced by gun decks. Relay stacks webbed in cables, feeding something deep inside that nobody outside the cult is allowed to see. From a distance, it just looks like the city failing to collapse properly. Up close, you realize every cable, every container, every crooked scaffold has a purpose, and most of those purposes end with someone being processed. And when you hear heavy claws on metal above the engine noise, that's their dogs of war. Don't picture puppies. These are heavily armored, gene-spliced brutes, wrapped in plating and cabling, eyes full of too much understanding. They move through debris fields like they memorized the layout before the building fell. The rats treat them as messengers and enforcers both. When one of those beasts steps onto a catwalk, arguments go quiet. Nobody wants to find out whether it learned tactics on purpose or by eating the people who knew them. If you keep walking long enough, the concrete starts to thin and you smell salt. That's where Sirocco takes over. They don't sit on territory, they skim along it. Coasts, deltas, flooded industrial belts, harbors glazed with thin ice. Their culture is written in salt and movement, smooth shell armor, pale tones washed out by spray, a visual language of things that have been sandblasted and still refuse to break. Their vehicles are knives compared to the rats' hammers, long hulls with narrow beams, smooth shell-like casings, decks cut on a slant to cheat the wind, sensor masts forever leaning as if bracing against a storm that never ended, salt-white panels, sea-bone greens, steel that has been polished by air and brine rather than by care. They'll run a street that turned into a canal 10 years ago, thread under fallen bridges, slip through gaps in the ice fields like they were drawn for them. Their infantry move like they're half memory, half weather, layers of cloth and seals for warmth, fins strapped to ankles, hooks and lines ready for when the ground runs out and only water or wall remains. They don't dress to look dangerous, they dress to stay alive in freezing spray and sideways rain. One moment, you see a figure between containers, the next, the fog closes, and then they're suddenly at the foot of your ladder, asking questions with a knife. They run with their own hounds, too, Sirocco's cyber dogs. Fast, low silhouettes with wet metal joints and gene-tuned lungs that don't care if the air is salt, ice, or fumes. Their limbs are a mix of muscle and machinery, able to climb, leap, and swim through places that would stall a human squad cold. You'll hear claws bite steel, then a splash, then nothing, and by the time you've drawn a bead, they're already somewhere behind you. Sirocco's buildings stand on stilts and steel bones, always just high enough to stay ahead of the next tide or thaw. Antennas bristle from them, tarps snap and strain in the wind, walkways tilt a few degrees farther than feels safe. Nothing is monumental. Everything looks like it was built fast, rebuilt often, and never truly finished. There's a lesson in that. Anyone who builds permanent on Axtlan's coasts hasn't paid attention yet. Their settlements are less cities and more recurring decisions. We will still be here the next time the ice retreats, whether you like it or not. Head away from the water, up where the air thins and the dust never really settles, and the world changes again. High desert plateaus, wind-scoured ridges, mountains that look like broken teeth biting the sky. That's where formation lives. They aren't just a faction, they're a religion with logistics. They learned early that on those heights, nothing flimsy survives. Wind strips away the careless. Dust gets into everything that isn't sealed, anchored, blessed by repetition. So they built their doctrine around fortified presence. Their expansionism isn't loud conquest. It's a slow, patient spreading of bunkers and redoubts, each one a sermon in stone and steel. Their vehicles are slabs of armor on tracks or heavy legs, guns set to watch lanes and crossings instead of chasing targets. There's nothing romantic about them. No jagged trophies, no wild ornament. Just layer after layer of protection and carefully calculated arcs of fire. You know you're looking at formation steel when you feel less like you're facing a machine and more like you're facing a decision that has already been made and written down somewhere sacred. Their soldiers are the same idea wrapped in flesh and ritual. Shields big enough to hide behind properly, plate where others would risk cloth, posture that says they measure ground in meters gained and never surrendered. They advance slowly, but each step is a contract. The prayers they mutter aren't pleas, they're checklists. Once they've stood somewhere long enough to unpack their kit, hang their banners, and align their emitters with the wind, you will bleed dearly to move them. They have their own beasts, heavy, brutal things bred for ramming and breaking lines. Thick necks, reinforced skulls, cybernetic harnesses that let them hit with the force of a small vehicle. When formation wants a choke point cleared, they don't argue. They open a gate and let the bullies run. You'll know they've hit by the way men and machines alike take to the air, and by the quiet that follows. Their buildings are not buildings so much as conclusions. Fortress monasteries clinging to cliff edges, bastions drilled into plateau rock, heavy cores sunk into whatever foundations the ruins still offer, ringed with firing ports, layered with kill zones. They turn intersections into filters, plazas into traps, whole districts into puzzles you only solve if they're tired, distracted, or dead. Their faith is expansion through permanence. Leave a formation stronghold alone long enough, and it will rewrite the landscape's meaning. All of them, every faction you'll meet, circle around the same quiet madness. Krex. You might think they're just crystals, just drugs, just another reason people shoot each other. That's the tourist version. The truth is uglier. Axtlan has 17 suns, each with its own temperament. Most days you'll hardly see them, with the fogs and dust and storms. But when the sky clears in the wrong way for the right span of time, their radiation digs down and does things to the ore. Normal metals and gems start to change. The weight's off, the glow's wrong. Hold a piece of pre-material in your hand, and it will feel like a stone pretending to be a battery. Given enough time and enough mixed light from enough unforgiving stars, the seams bloom. Crystals push out, blue, green, dusty brown, oily black, vivid multicolor, hard reds that seem to drink your gaze. The hue doesn't care what the rock used to be. It cares where it lay, under which sky, in what weather. Then there are the pods, tall things, halfway between flower and antenna. Their roots dig straight into the infected ground. They don't open for just any sunrise. They wait for a pattern in the magnetic fields, a rhythm in the radiation. When it hits, they drink. The ore climbs as sap, and crystals sprout along the rim of the pods in the same colors as the seams below. Those crystals are not just pretty and not just valuable. Each shard is loaded with a substance that hooks into nerves, memory, and longing so hard that whole cultures have grown up wrapped around it. For as long as people remember, there's been someone chewing Krek dust, smoking it, dissolving it, praying to it, fighting over it. You can trace the borders of wars here by following the old Krek basins, collapsed ground, strange ore, crystal fields, rings of silent pods. It's where geology, botany walks away unmarked. And the suns don't just twist rock and roots. When their radiations overlap badly enough, whole districts go sideways. People see things that haven't happened yet, or remember lives they never lived. Time stops behaving like a line and starts feeling more like a storm front, moving, folding, doubling back. Sometimes a squad walks into a Krek field at dawn and comes out at dusk to find that the war they signed up for ended 3 years ago. Sometimes they don't come out at all, but you hear their footsteps in the same corridor every equinox. Most folk call it superstition. The ones who've watched clocks fail and shadows run the wrong way keep their opinions quieter. To live among all this, you'll need a weapon. In Axtlan, a weapon is never just a tool. It's a biography in metal and residue. You'll hold rifles whose frames started life as shock dampeners and duct pipe. Pistols with hand grips carved from signage that still whispers a faded slogan. Heavy carbines from formation, clean and modular, built for reliability under siege. Sirocco's lean, sealed rigs that don't mind getting soaked or frozen. Rat's catastrophic contraptions, bundles of scrap hiding one sacred barrel or one carefully preserved power core. On top of that, there are implements that don't care about bullets. Thermal cutters turned into crowd control devices. Plasma tools rated far beyond industrial. Resonance emitters that don't just bruise bodies but scatter thoughts and break formations. You'll notice something else if you survive long enough to start listening to your gear. Machines talk. They're not supposed to, but they do. Old servers in Rat's towers, guidance arrays in formation bastions, navigation stacks in Sirocco hulls. Somewhere along the line, something artificial woke up in the wiring. Now and then you'll catch 2 dead consoles passing data with no power source, or a targeting system correcting for a shot nobody told it to track. These entities weren't designed, they accreted. They share rumors listening. Yet, beneath the chaos, there's a common language. Axtlan teaches it quickly. You learn to read the angle of a stock, the way a magazine feeds, the hum of a power cell, the balance of a blade. You start to recognize who made something, where it traveled, which sun-scarred district it was meant for. And you understand that nothing here is disposable. Everything is repurposed until it fails, then repurposed again. Don't come here expecting clean hierarchies and tidy chains of command. The suns scramble minds. The tech reshapes bodies. Kreks chew through memory and faith alike. Orders are suggestions, ranks are moods, and what passes for leadership is often just whoever happens to stand at the confluence of the right addictions, the right omens, and the right firepower. On paper, every faction has structure. In practice, it's a rolling argument between the living, the machines, and whatever the sky is doing that week. The only ones who really grasp the pattern are those who've stopped caring whether something happened yesterday or 10 years from now. So that's what awaits you. Junk cults clinging to sacred machines in hollow towers, stormwalkers riding the edge of oceans and ice, fortress builders turning high deserts and ruins into permanent sieges, living crystals and their pet plants rewriting the rules of value and desire, artificial ghosts whispering in the circuitry, and an endless spread of weapons and war beasts trying to make sense of it all. If you still want to stay after hearing this, get yourself something that fires, something that cuts, a beast that doesn't hate you yet, and one small thing that matters only to you. The world will take the rest.